Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahanavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya.
Okay, so you can unmute yourself and we will chant the 48th verse. Atmai Vedam Jagat Sarvam
Atmai Vedam Jagat Sarvam
Atmanonyanna Vidyate
Atmanonyanya Vidyate
Mrido Yadvad Ghatadini
Mrido Yadadini
Swatmanam Sarvamikshate.
Swatmanam Sarvamikshate.
So you have to rearrange the words. Atma eva idam jagat sarva. So that is the rearrangement of the first pada. Atma eva idam jagat sarvam. You can understand. This entire jagat is Atma eva. Is nothing else but Atma itself. And Atmanat anya na kinchit vidyati. Nothing exists other than Atma. And mridha yadvad ghata adini. So just as ghataha, just as the pots, amrid are only clay, swatmanam sarvam ikshate. Everything is seen as Atma. By whom? By the Jnani, of course. So he's saying just as everybody knows that pots are ultimately only clay, the Jnani knows sarvam ikshate swatmanam. Jnani knows that everything is Atman only. I'll just mute y'all. Somebody's mic is on, so we're getting a feedback. Okay. So Atma eva idam jagat sarvam. Just like the rope snake is only rope. So just like the sarpa, the snake is rajju eva, is basically only the rope. What is the meaning? The rope is satyam, truth. The adhishthanam is the rope. And the snake is the superimposed entity, the mithya. So if the entire jagat is mithya, how do we see it? So we say that the one who is got the knowledge, he sees the snake as the rope. For him, there is no snake apart from the rope. So he sees the snake, not the rope. And the one who does not have the knowledge, he sees the snake. So, yet agnya drishtya sarpaha asti. For the person without the knowledge, the snake is there. For the person with the knowledge, only rope is there. So he's talking about mithya. And we've seen several times in the Gita also. What is mithya? Does it exist or does it not exist? So there is a question. Does mithya really exist or not exist? And the answer is that you can ask yourself the question. I am seeing it and therefore it is existing. And the flip side is, if it exists, it cannot be negated. Because what we saw in Atma Bodha, that Sat is there in all the three time frames. So negation of something which is there in all the three time frames is not possible. And therefore mithya must be something in between existing and non-existing. So we experience it, but it is really not there. So what can be experienced but can be negated, that is called mithya. And therefore we say it is apart. It is not Sat, it is not Asat also. So that mithya is Sat, Asat, Vilakshanam. It is different from Sat and it's different from Asat also. And to understand that, it is pretty simple. Like if it was not there, you would not see it. But you see it, and yet it is not permanent because it can be negated. Therefore, it is something in between Sat and Asat. So in Sanskrit, we say Sat, Asat, Vilakshanam. That which is different from the Satyam and different from that which exists, and also that which is different from that which does not exist. So Sat, Asat, Vilakshanam. That is the definition of Mithya. And he says Atmanat Anyatra na kinchit vidyate. There is nothing which exists other than Atma. And what is the example we use? The necklace is gold, so is the bangle. And so we should remember that the terminology Anatma is used by the Shruti, used by Veda, by Upanishads, from the point of view of the sadhaka only. The term Anatma has a validity only from the point of view of the sadhaka, from the seeker, or the ajnani. From Shruti's point of view, there is nothing but Atma. From the Jnani's point of view, which is the Shruti point of view also, there is nothing but Atma. Then why does Shruti need to introduce the concept of Anatma? It is to make us understand that Anatma can be experienced, but has no substantial reality. And that's why he says Swatmanam Sarvam Ikshate. Swatmanam, from the Jnani's point of view, everything is only himself, Swatmanam. And therefore he gives an example, Mrid Yadvad Ghata Adini. Like the pot is only the clay. There is no real pot apart from the clay. Now we look at verse number 49. So please unmute yourself and we can chant it. Jivanam Muktastu Tadvidvan Purvopadi Gunanstajet Satchidananda Rupatvat Bhaved Brahmara Kitavat. So Jivan Muktaha to Vidwan. You have to drop the half sa, is a sandhi joiner, so it becomes Jivan Muktaha Tad Vidwan. That Vidwan, that wise man. So what is the suffix van? What does it indicate? It indicates that the possessor of the quality which is the prefix. So Tad Vidwan. Vidwan means with plus one. So one is the possessor of with. With is knowledge. So that Vidwan, that wise person, who is what? Jivan Muktaha. Who is a Jivan Muktaha? What does he do? Purva Upadhi Gunan Tyajet. Tyajet means he drops, he frees himself of the earlier Upadhis. All the Upadhis, he frees himself. Gunas are the properties of Shariratrayam. And here you are talking about the Upadhi and its attributes. The word Purva means before, the past. Why is it being used here? Because this Vidwan has freed himself of the effects of the Upadhi. So the Upadhi is no longer taken by the Vidwan as himself, which means that he no longer takes himself as a Sthula Shariram or a Sukshma Shariram or a Karana Shariram. He knows he is the Atma, and therefore the Upadhis, the gunas of which, the attributes of which he used to take as himself earlier, that he no longer takes, and therefore Purva, before. And then what is his nature? Satchidananda Swarupatvat. That Atma which he now knows is of the nature of Sat Chit Ananda. And Bhaved Brahmara Kitavat. So he is giving an example. So we'll come to the example. First, let's look at the words. Jivan Mukta. So for the first time in the text, so far Shankara has not introduced this term. So he's introducing it now. Jivan Mukta. the person who is free. Why Jivan? Because he is still living, his prarabdha is still there, and therefore the body is still living. So Jivan Mukta stays alive. If he is a teacher, it is his prarabdha. And then Satchidananda Rupatvat. He is resting in his original nature, which is Satchidananda. And an example is given. He says, Bhavet Brahmara Kitavat. So Brahmara is a wasp or a bee, and Kita is a worm. So there is an example used in a lot of Shastram. So don't look at the reality, the example, it's an example being used. So it's an imagery where a worm is put into the hive of into the nest or a hive of the bee. And it is said that the worm has to stay awake, because if it falls asleep, then the bee stings it to make it wake up. And therefore, in fear of being stung, the worm keeps looking at the bee. And because he's keeping looking at the bee, slowly it is said that he turns into the bee. So that is what it means here. Bhaved Brahmara Kitavat. Just like the worm turns into the bee. Okay. So you can take this worm as actually the larva of the wasp. So the story is that because the worm has no option but to keep looking at the bee, and it cannot even fall asleep, because the moment it falls asleep, the bee will sting it. And what is the imagery here? Slowly, that worm, it turns into the bee. Slowly. That is the key point here. It does not turn into the bee overnight. So does that mean that jnanam comes slowly in steps? Is that what Shankara is saying? No. Because jnanam, you either have jnanam or you don't have jnanam. You know you are Brahman, or you don't know that you are Brahman. There is no intermediate step possible. You cannot say maybe I am Brahman, or maybe my hand is Brahman, maybe my upper half of the body is Brahman. That is not there. You are either Brahman or you are not. Therefore, the knowledge comes immediately. What goes slowly? It is the Viparita Bhavana, the habitual thinking patterns which I have developed over the not only years, over several lifetimes. That goes very slowly because it has been present for countless number of births. So that's what it means over here. That you will get jnanam, but for your habitual thinking patterns, the vasanas, to stop troubling you, it will take a lot of time. And what is the sadhana meant for doing that, for getting rid of the vasanas?
Nididhyasanam.
Nididhyasana, right? Okay, now we look at verse number 50. So we'll chant. Tirthva moharnavam hithatva. Tirthva moharnavam hatva. Ragadveshadi rakshasan. Yogi Shanti Samayukta. Atma Ramo Virajate. Okay. So here, Tirthva Moha Arnavam. So Arnavam is the ocean. Moha is delusion. Tirthva means having crossed. So Tirthva Moha Arnavam, having crossed the great ocean of Moha. Who has crossed? The Jnani. Because getting over delusion is taken as moksha over here. And having crossed the great ocean of Moha, and during the crossing, what all has he done? Hatva, he has killed. What? Rakshasan. So I said before also, when you have long complicated words, to understand them, you read it like Urdu. You start from the right and move to the left. So Raga Dveshadi Rakshasan. So Rakshasan is first. So Hatva Rakshasan, having killed the demons of Raga, Dvesha, etc. So Hatva Raga Dveshadi Rakshasan. In the crossing of the great ocean of Moha, this Jnani has has killed the demons of Raga and Dvesha. Having done that, Yogi Shanti Samayuktaha, this yogi, this Jnana yogi, he attains peace. And not only that Atma Ramo Virajate. Atma Rama is Atma Ananda. So he remains in Atma Ananda. So how this Jiva attained moksha? This is actually illustrated in Ramayana also. So if you remember all the story about the golden deer, Rama is who? Paramatma. Sita is who in that story? If Rama is Paramatma, Sita is who?
Jiva.
Jivatma.
Jiva.
No,
Ego.
Jiva is not Jivatma.
It's Maya. Lakshmana is Jivatma.
What do you
Here is
what do you
she is
have?
Atma.
No.
Jiva.
Sharira.
What does the Paramatma have which we are looking at? We are looking for peace, right? Ananda. So that Ananda belonging to Paramatma is Atma Ananda. And therefore Rama, if you take Rama as Paramatma, Sita is the Atma Ananda which belongs to the Paramatma. Okay, so that is the first step of the story. Then Rama went after the golden deer. What does the golden deer represent?
Maya.
Anatma. It represents Anatma. So when the Paramatma Rama goes after the golden deer, what happens to him?
He loses the Ananda Atma.
He loses Sita, he loses the Atma Ananda, and therefore he becomes a Jivatma. So the same Rama is the Paramatma who had Sita, who was Atma Ananda, but he went after the Anatma golden deer, and in the process of running after the Anatma, he lost the Atma Ananda, and therefore he became a Jivatma. So Paramatma minus Atmananda is Jivatma. That is the story over here. And therefore to regain Sita, to get Sita back, to get back his Swarupa Ananda or Atmananda, what had he to do? He had to cross the ocean of samsara. And to cross the ocean of samsara, he needed the setu, the bridge. That story is quite philosophical if you analyze from the Vedantic point of view. And therefore he says, Tirtva Moha Aranam. He has crossed the Moha Aranam, the ocean of samsara he has crossed. How? What is the bridge he is using here? The setu.
The contemplation on the self.
It is a Viveka Shakti, right? So the discrimination faculty which he has, he uses. So using that, he has crossed the Moha Aranam. And in that process, using that Viveka, what does he do? Atva Raga Dvesha Adi Rakshan. He kills the demons of Raga and Dvesha. And once he kills the demons of Raga and Dvesha, what happens? Yogi Shanti Samayuktaha. He becomes reunited with Shanti, with Atma Ananda. So Rama becomes reunited with Sita. Though this Shanti, basically, this Sita belonged to whom earlier? None other than Paramatma Rama. And the Paramatma turned into Jivatma due to the foolishness of chasing the deer. Okay. Now don't analyze it into depth and say that no, Rama didn't want the deer, but Sita wanted the deer. That story is only for embellishment. What the basics which you take away from here is that Atmananda belonged to the Paramatma. So as Brahman, I have Atmananda. But because I have been foolish enough to chase Vishaya Ananda, the Anatma Ananda, I have lost the Atma Ananda. And if I have to get back my Atma Ananda, I have to get rid of the moha, the delusion. And therefore I have to cross the ocean of samsara. Once I do that, Atma Ramo Virajate. I find that Atma Rama that Atma Ananda has always been with me. Not that it ever went away, but because I was chasing the Anatma, I lost sight of the Atma Ananda. Okay. So this is that particular verse.
Is everything okay, Disha?
If there is talking in the house, please do mute yourself, okay? For disturbing the others. Okay. Now let us look at verse number 51, which we will chant. So please unmute yourselves. Bahya nitya sukha saktim hitvatma sukha nivratah gatas deepavat swastham swantareva prakashate. So this is a good text to pick up Sanskrit, because Sanskrit is very simply written, all very simple words, and those who know Hindi can very easily correlate it. So here what happens, the first verse you look at, first line, Bahya Anitya Sukha Asaktim Hitva. So there is Bahya Anitya Sukha. What does that mean? Bahya Anitya Sukha. Can somebody translate?
Impermanent happiness due to the external vishayas.
Impermanent happiness due to the external world. Asaktim. What is asaktim? Attachment. So Bahya Anitya Sukha Asaktim, the attachment to the temporary pleasures of the external world, Hitva, having given up. So that first phrase is having given up the attachment to temporary pleasures of the world, Atma Sukha Nivrattaha, getting the Atma Sukham. So here peculiarly Nivrattaha is used in the sense of acquirement. Normally it is used for getting rid of, but here it is used in the sense of acquiring. So Atma Sukha Nivrattaha, he gets the Atma Sukham, he gets. And what kind of Atma Sukham is that? Swantareva prakashate. Swa antaha eva prakashate. That which shines inwardly into himself. It's an inward Sukham. So that is Atma Sukham it is. Therefore, it is an inward Sukham. And he gives an example. Gatas deepavat swastham. So gatasta deepavat. Like the gataha, the pot, which has a deepa inside it. Swastham. And placed firmly, placed comfortably. So gatas deepavat swastham, like the pot, like the lamp, which is placed comfortably in a pot. This verse is basically explaining the word Atma Rama of the previous verse. What is the explanation? This person, he gives up attachment to external pleasures, which in any case is anitya, right? So Bahya Anitya Sukham Asaktetva. He gives up all his attachment to external pleasures. Why? Because he does not need to. He derives joy from the Atma. And since he does not depend upon Anatma for his pleasure anymore, whether the Anatma comes or goes, it doesn't bother him. The arrival and departure of Anatma does not bother him. So therefore, like the lamp which shines inside the pot and is comfortably placed, he is, having given up the external attachment, his Atmananda shines from inside him. So he is now privy to the Atmananda. He doesn't care anymore about the external Vishaya Ananda. So this is the definition of Atma Ramaha. Atma Ramaha is the one who delights in the Ananda of his own self. So Atma Ramaha. Ramaha means Ramyate, to play. Atma Ramaha is the person who delights or who plays in the Atma of his own nature, in the happiness of his own nature. Okay, now we look at the 52nd verse. I'm going slightly faster because we have done most of the complicated portions which require explanation. And now it is just examples of the examples. So verse 52, please unmute yourself. Upadisthopi tad dharmaihi alipto vyomavan munihi sarvavin modhavat tishteta asakto vayuvaccharet
Asakto
Vayuvayuvachate.
Okay. So upadisthaha api tad dharmaihi. So upadisthaha means being in contact with the upadhi. Sthaha is steady, or here upadisthaha means being in contact with the upadhi, and api tad dharmaha. The dharma here means attributes or gunas. So because he is in contact with the upadhi, even though he is in contact with the upadhi, his body-mind complex, and therefore experiencing the gunas of the body-mind complex. So intelligence, or if they sukshma shariram, either if you got a fever, the fever of the stula shariram, any attribute belonging to the bodies, all the three bodies, right? In the karana shariram, what is the attribute? What is the main attribute of Karana Sharira?
Undifferentiated, and it's the cause of the sthul and sukshma.
Ananda.
Ananda. Okay, Ananda is there and ignorance is there. Remember that. So Upadistha api dharmaihi, this person, because of the contact with Sthula, Sukshma and Karana Shariram, he experiences the attributes of all the three bodies, even though. So that is why api is there. Api means even though. Even though he is in contact with these three bodies and the attributes, alipto munihi, that muni is wise person, the jnani, alipto. He is not attached to these attributes or to the bodies. How vyomavat, like space. So we know that space is not attached to anything which moves in it. Space is asangaha. It has no contact with whatever moves in it. Similarly, this person, this jnani, even though he is in contact with the upadhis and the attributes, he is not attached to them. Like space is not attached to anything which moves in it. And then he gives a very interesting line over here. Sarvavit mudavat tishteta. This jnani, even though he is a jnani, even though he knows everything, mudavat tishteta, he behaves in the world like a fool, like somebody who doesn't know anything. And asakto vayuvat charet. Asaktaha, he is detached. Earlier we used asaktaha. So that difference should be noted. Asaktaha means greatly attached. Asaktaha means detached. So the difference of the a matra conveys a sense of attachment. When the a matra is not there, asaktaha is detached. So asaktaha, that person is detached, and vayuvat charet. He moves around like the wind. He moves around in the world like the wind. He goes from, that means he goes from place to place, where like the cloud moves wherever the wind takes it. So he doesn't have a particular thing to do. He has no karma to fulfill. He has no karma phalam he is looking at. And therefore he goes wherever his prarabdha takes him. That is what is meant over here. Now this verse is meant to address a question which might be raised. And normally the Dvaita, Dvaita schools, like Dvaitins, Vishishta Dvaitins, all these people, they will raise this question. They'll say, as long as there is a connection with the body, till that time, will not the connection with sorrow continue? So hunger will be there, thirst will be there, pain will be there. And also there's a misunderstanding usually that the jnani does not feel pain. The jnani is above all, problems of the body. So here that understanding has to be very clear over here. The jnani has a body. So he will have hunger, he will have thirst, he will have pain. All these things are there. So jnani will definitely have connection with the body. That is why he said api, even though he has the connection. But he knows that the body is mithya. And therefore, since he knows that he is the Satyam Atma, he is Satyam Brahman, Satyam Brahman can never have a connection with anything which is not Satyam. So, and the body and the mind complex are mithya only. All the upadhis and the upadhi dharma, all the attributes of the upadhis are also mithya. Therefore, even though he has a connection with the body, he knows that the body is mithya, and therefore the connection itself, the sambandha, is also mithya. Sambandha is negated, falsified, because of the knowledge that the body is mithya. So that's why he says, Upadhistaha api tad dharmai. The jnani continues to be in contact with the upadhi and experiences the attributes of the upadhi. However, unihi aliptoha. The jnani is not affected. Vyomavath, like space. So that is what I said. Supposing you beat the jnani with a stick, will he not feel the physical pain? He will. This physical pain is common to all jivas. It's a protection mechanism. It is part of samanya prarabdha. The body has come because of the prarabdha, and there are certain common aspects of the body. One is that it has a mechanism to protect itself in case of damage, and therefore your nerves are there, and if somebody hits you, you will feel the pain. That pain is to prevent your parts from being damaged, to give you a warning that something is going wrong. This nobody can stop. Therefore, the jnani will definitely feel the pain, but physical pain he will feel, biological pain he will feel, but the psychological pain, which is the mental reaction that all of us have to biological pain or physical pain, that psychological pain, this jnani won't have. It's like animals, for example. Animals have biological pain, but animals do not have sorrow. If you beat the dog that you have, the dog will definitely feel the pain, but he won't be sorrowful. So it is the psychological pain which is called samsara. Vedanta does not, and indeed it cannot address physical pain, but it addresses the psychological pain. And Vedanta says that this psychological pain is a product of your ignorance, of ajnana. And therefore he says, tad dharmaihi alipto munihi. He does not worry about the various problems with the upadhi, with the anatma goes through, vyomavath, like space. Space is not affected by the heat of the sun, or the cold of the winter, or the pollution in the air, or the rains. And therefore this is the imagery conveyed here. You should be healthy and not dependent upon others. But understand that whenever you are troubled, you means whenever your body is troubled, that this is prarabdha only, and that you are not that body, and therefore you should not be troubled too much. The pain will be there. To try whatever you can to dispel the pain or to make it better, but sorrow, psychological pain, mental reaction should not be there. And he gives one more qualification of the jnani. He says, among ajnanis, this jnani is like an ajnani. So sarvavit, the one who knows everything, mudhavat tishthate. He behaves as if he is an ajnani, as if he is a fool. And therefore this jnani he mixes with whoever he is with. If he is with people who are ritualistic, he will also do rituals with them. If it's like the cooking oil, which we use, which mixes with the vegetables. So if he plays with young boys are playing and he's there, he'll play with them. If young ladies are there, he will laugh with them. If scholars are there, he will debate with them. If jnanis are there, he will be in maunam or in silence with the jnanis. If some student comes to him to learn Vedanta, he will convert himself into a teacher. So this is what is being mentioned here. And if you remember, Krishna's conversion into Jagat Guru, that indicates this particular aspect. Krishna was a friend earlier. Then what happened? Yat shriyasya nishchitam brohi tanme shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapannam. He turned into a teacher. And therefore he says, asakto vayuvat charet. He moves as his prarabdha will take him. Like the wind from place to place. He has no attachment to any place. He stays with people. He enjoys the company of people. But he does not get attached. There is no raga dvesha at all. Okay. I'll take a small break here in case any question is there. Otherwise we can.
Acharya ji,
Yeah.
I have a question here.
Yes.
When we mention over here that a Jivan Mukta is one, Sansar is psychological pain and he moves beyond that psychological pain. About the qualities of compassion, empathy, love for all.
Yeah.
These are also emotions. These are also psychological aspects. So what happens to that? He's not attached to it, but these still exist.
Yes, because
unlike the negative ones like hatred and anger, is that what it means?
yes, but you should understand why. See, you will never understand if I just tell you that Jnani has these things. In the Jnani's view, who are the others?
No one's the self, the same.
There is nobody. So it's like your finger and your mouth. If you bite your finger with your mouth, do you beat up the teeth?
No.
No. Do you hate the teeth? No. Do you dislike the teeth? No. But what do you do to your finger which got bitten? You take care of it.
Right.
So that is the example. He takes
Thank
care of the others because he sees them as himself only.
Okay. Thank
There
you.
is no scope for anger or bitterness or hatred.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. So we look at verse number 53. So please unmute yourself and we can chant. Upadi vilayadish Vishnu. Upadi vilayadi Vishnu. Nirvishesham Vishen Munihi. Jale Jalam Vyat Vyomni. Tejas Tejasivayatha. Okay, so now look at the words. Upadi Vilayat Vishnu. Upadi Vilayat Vishnu. That Vilayadi breaks into ta plus V. So Upadi Vilayat Vishnu. So Vilayam is Layam. Layam means to resolve. So Upadi Vilayat Vishnu. When the Upadis, when the bodies, they resolve into Vishnu. So Vishnu here is Brahman. So when the bodies or Maya, when the bodies resolve into its cause, Maya, Nirvishesham Vishet Munihi. The Jnani is absorbed into the Nirvishesham. So that will explain. When the Upadis resolve into its cause, the Jnani is absorbed into Nirvishesham. How? He gives an example. Jale Jalam Vyat Vomnihi. So Jale Jalam, that is one example. Like the wave. So both, remember that Jala is also water, Jalam is also water. So you have to supply yourself. What will you supply? When you say water resolves into water, what will you supply?
The Upadhi, like waves, bubbles, all they go back into water.
Like the wave resolves into the ocean. So Jale Jalam means, so all these, unlike English where everything is specified, in Sanskrit there's a lot of, self-supplying to be done after your understanding. That is why we keep saying that you need to have a teacher. So Jale Jalam means like the wave resolves into the water. Vyat Vomnihi, both mean the same. Vyat means space. Vyomni also means space. So here what will you say?
In the limited space of the pot, it resolves into the bigger space.
Yeah, it's like the Ghata Akasha, the pot space resolves into total space. So now you're getting it. See, Jale Jalam, wave into water. Vyat Vomnihi, Ghata space, Ghata Akasha into total Akasha. And Tejas Tejasi Vayatha, light into light. What is that? Tejas Tejasi Vayatha, like the light resolves into the light.
Like the reflection which dissolves, the reflected light, which the small light which dissolves into the bigger sunlight, like the moonlight into the sunlight.
You can say moonlight into sunlight, but the correct explanation here is what? Like the RC resolves into the OC.
Right.
Right? The reflected consciousness, that is light only, right? Reflected consciousness resolves into the original consciousness. So what is being discussed now? When you are saying dissolves into the Nirvishesham, what is being discussed?
Ekyam.
That Jivatma is equal to Paramatma.
No, we are discussing the
Layam.
Jivatma, the Jivan Muktaha becoming Videha Muktaha. Okay, because here the wave is the Jivan Muktaha and the OC is this ocean. The Ghata Akasha is the Jivan Muktaha. The total space is the ocean. So he's saying what exactly is Jivan Mukti, is Videha Mukti, he is discussing. So we know that Prarabdha is present in all the three bodies. Okay. So see, for example, now when we say that on Jivan Mukti, all the karmas are destroyed. What are we saying? Is there any destruction of the bodies at Jivan Mukti? Can we, because normally all the karma is contained in which body?
Karan Sharira.
Karana Shariram. So is it correct to say that when you get Jivan Mukti, the Karana Shariram is destroyed?
No. No.
Then why? What is it? What is it that you are saying? Because Karana Shariram contains all the stock of karma. And as long as you've got karma, you will have rebirth.
Nirbijam. He becomes Nirbijam.
Seeds are hosted, so nothing can sprout from them.
He's there. He's there.
So remember that without Karana Shariram is the very cause, the very seed of what?
Sthula and
Sthula and Sukshma. And now if you are saying the Jnani is Jivan Mukta, you are saying he's got a body, right? He's got physical body, he's got the Sukshma Shariram also. And neither the physical body nor the Sukshma Shariram can be there without the Karana Shariram. So when you say you got Jivan Mukti, you can't really say that Karana Shariram has been destroyed. You are saying that the karma has been destroyed. You have to take it as Baditham. The destruction of Karana Shariram at Moksha, which is a common, commonly used term. Okay, we say that Karana Shariram is destroyed at Jivan Mukti. It is not real destruction. It means falsification. Like you destroy the pot, not by breaking it. How do you destroy the pot?
By understanding that the pot is the clay only.
Yes, that understanding that pot is nothing but clay means you are falsifying or you're dismissing the pot as something which does not exist apart from the clay. So that is what you are doing here. You are dismissing Karana Shariram as Mithya. And that is called destruction of Karana at Moksha, at Jivan Mukta. But when Prarabdha is exhausted, then what happens? During Prarabdha, the physical body is there, subtle body is there, and Karana has been falsified, has been dismissed as Mithya. Of course, you have dismissed the physical body also as Mithya. You dismiss the subtle body also as Mithya. All the three bodies have been dismissed as Mithya during Jivan Mukti, during the time when the body is alive and the Jnani is a Jivan Mukta. But when Prarabdha is destroyed, is exhausted, when the physical body falls, it is not just the physical body which falls. All the three bodies are destroyed. The physical body, of course, is destroyed. But at Videha Mukti, Sukshma Shariram is also destroyed. Karana Shariram is also destroyed. Which is why in the Mundaka Upanishad, the term Paranta Kale is used. There are two terms we use for death. One is the term used for death of the Ajnani, that is Antakale. That in Bhagavad Gita also Krishna uses Antakale. But in Mundaka Upanishad, the term Parantakale is used. So he is indicating the difference between Pralayam and Mahapralayam. Difference between the death of a Ajnani body and the death of a Jnani body. So that is the difference between Pralayam and Mahapralayam. In Pralayam, what happens? Sukshma Shariram is resolved. It goes back into Karana Shariram. In Mahapralayam, what happens? Sukshma is destroyed because Karana has been falsified. Karana has been destroyed also. And therefore he says, Upadi Vilayat Vishnu, where the three Upadis resolve into Vishnu, the all-pervading Atma. So Vishnu is Vishnoti iti Vishnahu, that which envelops everything, that into everything into which everything merges. That is Vishnu. So Upadi Vilayat Vishnu. When the three Upadis resolve into Vishnu, the all-pervading Atma, what happens? Munihi Vishet Nirvishesham. The Muni, he merges into that nirvishesham, into which that nirvishesham is where there are no distinctions at all. Vishesham means distinction is there. Nirvishesham means there are no distinctions. Why? Because all distinctions belong where? Atma or Anatma?
Anatma.
Anatma. And therefore, when you merge into the Atma, or when you become Atma, you are leaving behind Anatma. And therefore, he has nirvishesham. He merges without distinctions. And again, we have to carefully understand. When we say merging, there is no real action. It is not that something merges into something else. It is like the pot space merging with the outside space. What has really happened? Only the pot has been destroyed. The space has remained the same. The pot was existing in the space, and it is because of the inadequacy of our understanding that we give the word pot space to the space which apparently is inside the pot. So there is space inside the pot and outside the pot. But correct understanding would be that the pot is in the space, not the other way around. And therefore, when the pot breaks, what happens is the word pot nama, the word pot is destroyed. Nothing else is destroyed. The word, the name and form is destroyed. Similarly, when this Jivan Mukti occurs, it is the word Jivan Mukta which is destroyed. There is no other destruction. And that's why he gives 3 examples. Jale Jalam, when the wave merges into the ocean, or you can say when the water in the pot merges into the river water, or Vyat Vyomnihi, when the pot space merges into the total space, or Tejas Tejasi Vayatha, as the moonlight merges into sunlight, or the reflected consciousness merges into the original consciousness. Okay, so we'll do one more verse.
Om Acharya,
Yes, please.
may I ask, please?
Yeah.
This state of Jivan Mukta and Videya Mukta can be related to something like what happens when we are in a state of consciousness at the time of waking and the dream, when we realize that the dream is still on, yet we are moving into that, yet we are conscious of the dream happening. So as soon
No,
as
I haven't not yet to come across any scriptural reference to this, that you can be conscious of the dream happening. Vedanta doesn't accept. Either you're in the dream world or you're in the waking world. Because in the dream world, there is a dreamer. In the waking world, there is a waker. The two are mutually exclusive. Why?
because they cannot, because the waker, the dreamer is the waker.
Different
but
orders of
their
reality.
reality is different.
It is the dreamer which turns into the waker.
Right.
It is the waker which turns into the dreamer. So there is no possibility of the waker seeing the dreamer. So that's I know they call it lucid dreaming and all that, but Vedanta doesn't accept. You cannot know that you are in a dream. Then it's no longer a dream. Then you have to give it another name, some sort of intermediate state.
No, but
If you are saying dream, it's not there. Sorry?
But isn't this actually the state of Jivan Mukta where we are conscious, but yet the body exists?
He is conscious, yes. But the body is there, no? He has only falsified it.
So
But
like we are aware, but we are falsifying that the dream.
How can you? You cannot, because there you are talking about 2 different things. You are talking about waker and a dreamer. Here you are talking about the fact that, see, all knowledge, all knowledge, you must understand, takes place in which state?
Conscious state.
In
waking.
the Jagrada Avastha only. Only in Jagrada Avastha. No knowledge can take place in any other Avastha. Remember that when we make these statements. Yes, June, tell me.
Raviji.
Yeah.
So we were saying that all the karmas are being stored in the Karanam Shariram.
Yes.
I wanted to know what's the difference between like Sanchita karma, that is the store of karmas, and what is the difference with the Karanam Shariram?
Sanchita
how do they interact?
Sanchita karma is stored in Karana Shariram. Yeah.
So is one of the components of Karanam Shariram, or how can we say that?
When we say Karana Shariram, you are referring to Sanchita karma only.
Okay, so there are synonyms?
They're not really synonymous because Karma Shariram can also be taken as the state of ignorance. So if you remember Atma Bodha, this karma is there, ignorance is also there in Karma Shariram.
Okay. Thank you.
And you can't really analyze too much because there is Maya there. And Maya is not very clearly explainable at all. So if you are saying, how does Karma Shariram, store the karma? Because Karma Shariram, also we say that the Karma Shariram is, you can't distinguish between individual Karma Shariram and the totality Karma Shariram and the universal Karma Shariram. There is no distinction possible, partly because there is nobody to distinguish. And even Shankaracharya in his commentaries, he uses the term interchangeably. Karma Shariram individually and Karma Shariram of the universe.
Of the universe.
So he doesn't distinguish there, but because it is Maya, you have to, there is somehow, that's why you call it anirvachaniyam, unexplainable. There is somehow in this totality, the individuality of each Karma Shariram is maintained. How is not known. It's like you are saying in the seed, nothing can be seen, but the seed, the individuality of the branches and the fruits are maintained. But the seed as such is ghana, it is dense, only one uniform mass. Karma Shariram is supposed to be like that, one uniform mass wherein individual things are also stored. And somehow when the world evolves again, from that individual mass, from the total mass, the individual Karma Shariram functions as an individual and the individual Sukshma Shariram is thrown out. Okay, any more questions? All right, so we can do one more verse. So let us look at verse number 54. Yallabha na paro labha yat sukha na param sukham yad jnana na param jnanam tad brahmeti avadharayet. Okay, so he says yat labhat na aparam jnanam, na aparam labha. There is no labha, there is no gain which is higher than this gain. Which gain? The gain of becoming Jivan Mukta. Yat sukhat na aparam sukham. There is no ananda higher than this ananda. Yad jnanat na aparam jnanam. There is no jnanam, there is no knowledge higher than this knowledge. And tad brahma iti avadharayet. Understand that state as that of Brahman. Tad brahma iti avadharayet. Avadharayet means may you understand. May you understand that this state is that of Brahman. So, having said that on Videha Mukti, the Jivan Mukta becomes one with Brahman. Now Shankara talks about the nature of Brahman in the next 4 verses. So he has said that Jivan Mukta will become Brahman, merge with Brahman. That's what he said in the last verse. And therefore he has to tell us what this Brahman is, right? So he is saying that now we will talk about what is the Brahma Swarupa, what is the nature of Brahman. And Brahma Prapti, basically, the acquirement or the attainment of Brahman or the realization that I am Brahman is not like any other gain in this world. Every gain, apart from gaining your own self, is an impermanent event. Every gain is temporary because it comes and goes. But this Brahma Prapti literally means attainment of Brahman, which again you have to understand in our terminology as knowing that I am none other than Brahman. That is Brahma Prapti. So he says, Yat labhat na aparam labha. The gain is What are you gaining? Purnatvam itself, completeness itself. The moment you say that I have become the infinite, by definition, nothing finite is left out of the infinite. There cannot be anything finite which is outside the infinite, right? Because if you have one infinite and you have something finite outside, what is the contradiction?
It negates
Infinite will no longer remain
It's not
infinite.
infinite.
Infinite will no longer remain infinite. So there can be only one infinite. You cannot say I have some infinite and something left over. And therefore he says, Yat labha na param labha. The gain is that of Purnatvam itself. And by definition, nothing else remains to be gained. This is the highest gain. And therefore this jnani, he does not need to look elsewhere in the world because the whole world is inside him. So Yat Sukham na param sukham. And therefore it is the greatest ananda. Yad jnanat na param jnanam. Having obtained this knowledge that he is Brahman, what other knowledge can he possibly want? All this is possible only because Tad Brahma iti avadharayet. You must know that it is Brahman alone. Okay. Now verse number 55 we look at. So we will chant. Yad drishtva na param drishyam.
Yad drishtva na param
Na
drishyam.
param drishyam.
Yad bhutva na punarbhavaha.
Yad
Yad bhutva na
punarbhavaha.
Yad gyatva na param geyam.
Yad jnatva na param jneyam.
Tad brahme tava dharayet. Okay. So he says, Yad drishtva na param drishyam. Having seen this, what? This knowledge, this vision that I am Brahman, na aparam drishyam. There is nothing left, nothing higher to see. Na aparam drishyam. There is nothing higher that remains to be seen. Yad bhutva. Having become Brahman, na punarbhavaha. One is not born again. Yad gyatva na param geyam. So you're repeating. Having known this, there is nothing more to be known. Tad Brahma iti avadharayet. This is a repetition of the last line of the last sloka also. So the idea in the previous sloka is being again stated. That there is no more superior vastu. There is no object to be seen apart from Brahman or to be known. And there is no further becoming. So yad bhutva na punar bhavaha. Literally bhava means to become. Right? And bhava roga, the disease of bhava, is another name for samsara. Because in samsara it is said, the definition is samsarati iti samsara. In that in which you are totally becoming. Always you are becoming something or the other. Samsarati iti. You are becoming something or the other. You are always moving. So first you are a child, then you are a teenager, then you are an adult, then you are an old man. That is in this world. And if you look at the other world, first you are a deva, then you are a gandharva, then you are a prajapati. You are always becoming something or the other. And therefore samsara is called bhavaha. Bhavaha means to become. Another word for samsara is bhavaha. A more commonly used word is bhavarogaha, the disease of becoming. So he says, yad bhutva, having become Brahman, na punar bhavaha, there is no more becoming. That pursuits, all the pursuits have come to an end. Remember that in any pursuit in this world, I am converting I into something else. So the I is always relative. There is I who is a child who becomes an adult. I who is a poor man who becomes an I who is a rich man. So as long as the I is relative, you will never be satisfied. But once the I is absolute, that is Purnam, then the question of being unsatisfied is not there. Once you convert this relative I into I the Brahman, there is nothing more to achieve. So he says, Tad Brahma iti avadharayet. Know that this final I, from which there is no more conversion, that I is Brahman itself. So with this, we'll stop. In case of any questions, you can ask.
Acharya ji, in that example of a jnani where you said that somebody hit him, I just wanted to ask, will this jnani also have the instinct to survival with him? And
Yes, of course, he'll run away, obviously. He's not going to stand there and say, beat me. He'll definitely run away. So that's called Samanya Prarabdha. It's the general Prarabdha which affects all bodies. That's the instinct of self-survival, persevering your own self is there always. What is different is that the other person will get anger and sorrow. The jnani will not. He will accept the situation for what it is and try to save himself.
But once you said a jnani also gets angry at times. So this time when somebody is beating him, should he not get...
The jnani should not get angry. Jnani can, show anger. Jnani
Okay,
can
that's
show
what
anger.
I meant.
Yeah, but he
That's what I meant. He should be showing anger.
He can. It can be used as a tool for survival, yes. But that doesn't take away from him being a jnani. But usually, at least in my experience, jnanis rarely ever lose their cool. I've never seen, actually, never.
And only a jnani can recognize another jnani?
That is a way of saying, because the fact that you are established in Atma and the other person is established in Atma, that can be known by another jnani only. That again is very, loose way of saying. Ultimately, everybody is a jnani. If you are describing Brahman as being jnani, then you are all jnanis. The difference is some of us know that we are jnanis and some of us don't know that we are jnanis. That's the only difference. But you can't say that I am not a jnani. The moment you say I am not a jnani, you are saying I am not Brahman, which is not correct at all.
Future.
Sorry, please carry on.
Thank you.
Okay.
Acharya, there is a question over here.
Yeah.
We come across a lot of people, saints or somebody or other people who have more than the finite powers that we are used to. So how does one explain that? They must be jnanis with powers or siddhas? What I mean?
See, there are two explanations. Okay, the explanations which I accept, at least I personally accept, is that the body is made of what? Matter. Right? All matter has a limitation.
Yes.
And the matter in my body cannot be different from the matter in your body. Because ultimately, Pancha Mahabhutan.
Yes.
Right? So it's not possible for my body to be, floating and your body not to be floating. Or my body to become big and small and your body to become big and not big and small.
Right.
This is called Samanya Dharma. The general characteristics of the material from which your body is made logically should be the same for everybody.
Yes.
Okay. So from that point of view, which is the Vedantic point of view, I'll say that those are just exaggerated stories. Just to make it, build some amount of faith and devotion in the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, if you are not a Advaitic student and you are, let us say, a person who is into Dvaitam, then Yoga Shastra talks about Siddhis.
Mm-hmm.
Now, since Yoga Shastra is also a scripture, so we will not dismiss.
Right.
So there you will have jnanis who are got Siddhis. So from that point of view, you have to choose which chair you are sitting on, the Dvaita chair or the Advaita chair. Of course, I'm not saying every Advaitin will have the same, outlook. My thing is that to be convinced of something, I have to know logically that it is possible. And logically for me, the material from which the jnani's body is made is the same as the material from which everybody else's body is made. It is subject to the same, issues. And if you are an avataric body, if your bodies are of an avatar, directly created from Maya instead of the normal process, then like in Mahabharata, like Krishna, grows in size, drops in size, takes all the arrows on his chest, nothing happens to him. All those are stories which you just look at and try to understand which one you want to believe. So there are no correct answers over here.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, somebody else wanted to ask. I think it was it.
Yeah, it was me, but now I have forgotten my question. Thank you, Ravi.
All right. Okay, so with this we'll stop. Oh, Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purna, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnam, Eva, Vashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Have a great weekend, guys. Om Om.
Thank you. Same to you, sir.